Chapter 35, Cold Dawn Light.
Heard something about a town south of here being attacked, but details are sketchy. All I know is there haven't been any refugees showing up here, which means either the attack wasn't too bad, or it was very, very bad.
Heroes. We all need heroes, children. Now more than ever. It's a good fight they're fighting, and they're doing it on behalf of all of us. But the Equestrian Wasteland is a hard place on heroes. No. It's brutal to them. It beats them down. It tears them apart. Eventually, every hero falls. Inevitably, every hero fails. Now, listen close, children. Heroes ain't machines from some equestrian robotics factory. Heroes are ponies, just like us, doing the things that we should be doing, because there ain't no pony else doing them. The true mark of a hero is not that they never fail, never fall down. I've said it 100 times, and I'll say it again. The one great truth of the wasteland is that every pony has done something that they regret. No, you know a true hero by what they do after they fail, by the way they pick themselves back up, shake themselves off, and throw themselves back into that good fight, despite what they've done, and despite the bleak prospects of a happy ending. Sad truth is, most heroes don't survive, or they become overwhelmed by the cruelty and despair and disheartened, and they give up. But in the Stable Dweller, the bringer of light, I've seen a hero of an entirely new tier. I was convinced, still am, that this hero will never surrender to the wasteland, never give up. There is, however, one other fate that may befall our heroes. When the horrors and the pain of the Equestrian Wasteland becomes too much for them, they can snap. They can turn into the very monsters they chose to fight. Sadly, children, it can happen to the very best of ponies. Even Fluttershy had her Gardens of Canterlot. Now, we don't know if that's what happened to our heroine of the wasteland, or if there's more to this story than what we've been told. We just don't know. But I can tell you this. The pony who first reported the slaughter at Arbu was from Buckland Cross. Now that's a Steel Ranger stronghold, and I got my reasons to take a critical eye to what they may have to say. So I've started doing some digging, and I started that digging by trying to contact the gal I know at Buckland Cross. Riverseed, a trustworthy pony. Turns out, she ain't there no more. No pony is. Buckland Cross, where our witness of the Arbu massacre claimed to be from, he is dead. Completely wiped out. Now, children, I know this looks bad. 2 communities in the vicinity of our heroine wiped out. I'm still holding on to hope, but I'd be remiss if I didn't send out a word of warning, just on the chance that the Equestrian Wasteland's facing a whole new kind of dark. So, if you see a band of well-armed ponies, including a Pegasus and a zebra headed your way, or a Pegasus-pulled passenger wagon flying nearby, until we know better, maybe you best be someplace else. But if the Stable Dweller should come to your door, don't lock it, because if our hopes are true, then she's in more of our need of help and our support right now, more than ever before. And if our fears are true then, well, children, just might see that locked door as a challenge.
How bad? Calamity demanded, his snout pushed up against Grandpa Rattle, as if the two bucks were going to kiss. I need to know, cuz I'm trying real hard here to make sense of this, and it ain't happening. I love little Pip, and I want this to be right somehow, but all I'm seeing is a group of good folk who took us in, fed us, offered us shelter, and got slaughtered for their kindness. I had just wiped out a town. A whole town. I just killed, murdered so many ponies. My rage had burned itself out, leaving me an empty husk. I wasn't sad or angry. If anything, I just felt hollow and slightly confused. The events of the last... How long did it take? An hour? Less? I couldn't remember. My thoughts and memories were all jumbled and refused to straighten out. My comprehension of what I'd done was as much from the evidence in front of me as my fragmented recollection of my actions. They were cannibals, Steelhoof stated, not for the first time. You saw it yourself. The basement! Go! See for yourself! That's what I had told them. My friends had caught up to me just as I stepped into Starbucked, but not before I started shooting. The Colt was in there. Sandy Shaw. I remembered that now. They were at a dinner table. Eating. Again. The bastards had already fed the boy's own father, and it wasn't enough for them. I remembered the fire pit. Hot coals and flame and the rod of iron, with a twisted ending that took the shape of the Abu brand, glowing. In my rage, I assumed they were going to brand him. But, in the wake of things, that didn't make much sense. And, I think, one of the other ponies in there had been in a firefight against the bandits this morning. I remembered the Calamity being shocked and concerned as he watched me open fire. Velvet had been nearly hysterical. The basement! I had shouted. Go! See for yourselves! Ain't ponies here left worth seething, boy, Grandpa Rattle told Calamity. Except for the kids. Any pony worth being called a pony left in this town left years ago. Found other ways of surviving. You're still here, Calamity pointed out harshly. Some pony had to stay for the little ones, the elderly buck replied. And to warn folk away. Calamity looked like he wanted to argue that, but Grandpa Rattle continued. Every other pony here was a willing party to murder, and worse, those who didn't. Some went on to Friendship City, or to Gutterville. Some joined up with bandits. Hell, boy, half of the folk you shot up this morning used to live here. Calamity reeled a bit at that revelation. The little ones, the children of Abu, were huddled together behind Velvet Remedy's shield spell. My unicorn friend had maintained the shield since the fighting started, dropping it only when I floated a new colt or filly from one of the old stores. She hadn't fired a shot the entire time, just stood there, inside her shield, guarding the children. By the time I had come out of Starbucked, the colt and two young fillies in tow, the others had come out of the clinic. They had seen what I had seen, but by then, it didn't matter. The rest of the town was awake, and they were shooting back. If it hadn't been for Velvet Remedy, the town might have killed its own children in the crossfire. Calamity had shot back in self-defense, firing to wound or incapacitate. I remember his look of horror as I finished off a pony he had taken out of the fight through crippling. Steelhooves had also fought defensively, letting me enter each place first. But, unlike Calamity, my girlfriend didn't pull his bucks. Custard's pies was burning from the missiles he had fired. Something in the architecture must have kept the fires from spreading, I thought, because all of Abu should have been burning to the ground. I looked at the children. They hugged each other, crying, terrified. cowering behind Velvet Remedy, casting horrified or hateful looks at me. I stood there and soaked up their hate. I couldn't blame them. The poor children had just seen me murder their parents, their families. More than one had heard their mother scream out rape as I first ripped their clothing from them, looking to see if they had taken the brand. I swallowed as the first feelings returned to my soul. Pain and self-horror at what I had done to these children. What I had let them see in the name of saving them. Oh, goddesses. What damage had I done? There were 5 of them in all, plus the cult whose father I had killed, plus one young buck with them, not much older than a colt. He was old enough to have his cutie mark, but his flank didn't bear the mark of Abu. He had eaten, knowingly, but he'd been unable to bring himself to kill. I spared him. He could be saved. In the entire town, he had been the only one, save for Grandpa Rattle and the children. Even in my rage, I hadn't wanted to believe that the whole town was vile. Surely, I kept thinking, there had to be a few more. Even just one. Now, listening to Grandpa Rattle, I understood why. Except for the young buck. Each and every attempt to find a redeemable pony had failed. Calamity turned, trotting towards Velvet Remedy, barely casting a glance my way. He stared at the unicorn who had become his lover through the shield of magical energy she was maintaining around herself and the children. You said little Pip had a concussion, right? Could that explain this? My Pegasus friend looked desperate. She's not thinking straight. Not herself, right? That could. Excuse this? Velvet Remedy stared back at him through the glow of magic, eyes narrowing. She shouldn't have an excuse. I stared silently, watching my friends argue about my actions. Take sides. I was struck mute, like I was in shock. Only shock didn't feel this dead. My headache had returned. Actually, it had never left. But the pounding was getting worse. Bad enough I couldn't ignore it anymore. But even with all that happening... Wait a minute. Pardon? Calamity asked, eyes widening. They were cannibals. Velvet Remedy snorted. Maybe it's hard for you to see. Maybe being so quick to eat meat yourself. But these ponies, what they have done is evil beyond the pale. Hey! Calamity shot back, raising his voice to match hers. I get that they were cannibals. Puts them right up there with New Appaloosa on the list of places I ain't gonna settle down. And the fact that they fed me, pony, makes this a place I would never come back to, and would be warning other folks about. I winced. Calamity, equating cannibalism to trading slavers on a morality scale. But I wouldn't go slaughtering them for it, Calamity continued. Far as I can see, they only ate bandits, raiders and the like, ponies who need to be put down. Arrgh! Velvet Remedy gasped in exasperation. There are some things you just don't do, Calamity. I'm not a naive stable filly anymore. I've seen how hard the equestrian wasteland is. I know that you have to do awful things out here. Looting dead bodies? Okay. Killing? Monsters and vicious animals. All the time. Other ponies? Not as much as you like to, but yes. Even killing ponies is often regrettably necessary. Velvet Remedy had been a stable dweller. Like me. She grew up with the same morality I did. Only she had always held hers better than I had. The wasteland had begun to erode me from the first night out. Velvet's sense of right and wrong was made of sterner stuff than mine. And what she had seen in the basement was so far beyond what she could accept. But you treat having to kill them with respect. You bury them. Or, if you don't, you at least don't dance on them and urinate on their corpses. And you don't carve them up for snacks. You do what you must to survive. Xanath intoned softly. It was the first thing she had said since the shooting started. Velvet turned on her, eyes wide. Are you seriously going to side against little Pip on this? With the argument of cannibalism, yay? Unlike Velvet and Calamity, Xena's voice only grew softer. You cannot begin to understand what I let them do to me in order to survive. If they had put pony meat in front of me and told me to eat, I would have. It would not have been the worst thing I let them do. Not even that week. Velvet took a stumbling step back from the dour zebra, turning to Calamity. They didn't just kill Bandit's Calamity. You saw the head of the preacher. They had it mounted on the wall like a trophy. And if they murdered him, how many more? I don't reckon I know, Calamity replied. Point is, none of y'all know either. They fed you the meat of ponies you killed. Probably fed you the heart of one of them. Velvet Remedy continued. I ain't happy about that. And they've been selling it to merchants, spreading their filth across the wasteland. Velvet pointed out, a hoof towards the children clutching each other behind her. And they've been indoctrinating a whole new generation to do the same. Velvet, I said softly, too softly to be heard. Don't defend me, Velvet. You were right about me back in old Appaloosa. I'm a murderer. A monster drowning in the blood of all the ponies I've killed. I'm the thing in the mirror. No better than a raider. Except, I wasn't. Was I? There were bad ponies. They needed to die. I was saving ponies by wiping them out. Wasn't I? Corrupted kindness, the little pony in my head said angrily. Abu wasn't a town full of ponies, Velvet Remedy asserted. It was a cancer that needed to be destroyed before it could spread any further. Velvet? I said again, a little louder. Calamity was staring at her in silence. Neighing loudly, Velvet exclaimed, Abu was mutated flesh that had to be cut away in order for the wasteland to even begin to heal. Velvet, you're scaring the children. My voice was soft, but just loud enough for her to hear. The beautiful charcoal unicorn turned, aghast, tears forming in her eyes as she looked at the terrified expressions on the faces of the fillies and colts behind her. I'm not corrupted kindness. I whimpered back at the mirror in my mind, but I didn't believe it. Not anymore. Trixie had been right. Or I had made her right. If you haven't found your own virtue yet, Montre Jacket told me, you best hurry up while there's still anything left of you to save. Was there anything left of me to save? You just slaughtered over 20 ponies, the little pony in my head responded. What do you think? My head was splitting open. I realized I was crying. Calamity turned to Steelhooves now. What about you? What about me? Steelhooves responded laconically. Calamity shook his head. Is there a way for me to be okay with this? I want to be okay with this for little Pip, but... Little Pip is our leader, Steelhooves replied. It was her call. It was? Calamity blinked, his brow furrowed under his hat. It? Oh, hells no. The Pegasus launched himself through the air, flying up to the Steel Ranger outcast. Steelhooves stood his ground. The idea of Calamity intimidating the huge ranger struck me as ludicrous. You're the leader of the Air Projects Rangers now. You don't get to play the good little soldier card anymore, Calamity informed him. Tell me, what would Applejack think of this? Steelhooves' deep voice rumbled dangerously. Applejack was a farmer. What she didn't put into her friends and trying to save ponies, she put into her apples. She understood the need to get rid of bad apples. And I think she would be repulsed beyond the telling of it to see ponies eating other ponies. Calamity flapped his wings, moving back a pony's length. But to kill them all? Steelhorse whinnied. She wouldn't have done that. No. But she had other options. She would have had them all arrested, rounded up, and carted off to the Ministry of Peace, where they could be fixed. Calamity nodded. But that's kind of my point. Little Pip had options. She could have come to us. Why didn't she come to us first? I was hating how Calamity was talking about me like I wasn't there. Like he couldn't bear to acknowledge me. But then, did I deserve better? Would I have been able to look at him if he had just done the same thing? She was enraged. She was not thinking clearly. Steelhorse informed Calamity bluntly. The only thing she's done wrong here is that she let her anger control her. Is that what you need to hear, Calamity? Then yes, I don't approve. I would prefer she had killed these monsters with cold-blooded calculation. Steelhorse was right. Calamity was right. I had totally lost it. But they were bad ponies. They were horrible ponies. They deserved it. All of them? The little pony challenged. Even the young ones. I tried to save the young ones. I rescued them. But I traumatized them in the process. Was what I had done any better than what the Raiders did to Silverbell? Still, I'd only killed the responsible ones. The adults. The mayor in my mind spit back at me, asking, what about the young mayor in the clinic? My mind swam. I was still having trouble remembering everything that had happened. It was like trying to put together a puzzle while gagged. I couldn't hold the pieces in my hooves, and they kept slipping away. Blam, blam, blam. Blam, blam, blam. I remembered that much. 2 3-round bursts. One into the mother. One into the father. I hadn't killed the young mare. Are you sure about that? The little pony was quick to point out. She's not here amongst the living, is she? Are you sure you didn't choke her to death? Were you even paying that much attention? I didn't. Couldn't have. Did I? And even if I didn't, what had I done? I left her laying unconscious next to the burning bodies of her murdered parents. So much less evil, little Pip. I was evil. But she wasn't a filly, I thought desperately, clinging to any illusion I could keep. She had her cutie mark already. Stable think? The mayor in my mind chided. You were older when you got yours. She had her Abu mark. She'd killed and eaten. How do you know her kill wasn't a damned radigator? My little pony spat. She was a guard. The rifle under the table had proved that. The Abu ponies had guests in town. Guess they weren't going to kill. So they had guards, protecting their dark secret. Ready to kill. To defend it. And she was one of them. She knew what the town was doing, and that it was wrong. And she was still protecting it. The little pony in my head shut up at that. For what absolutely little it was worth. I had scored a point. Go up to my room, the voice said beside me. Grandpa Rattle had walked up to me at some point and hadn't even noticed. I felt like I was missing time. There's a safe under my bed. Fetch the book inside. I know you can pick a lock. I turned to him. It was like he was forever away. I had the sudden sense that I was drowning in all this air around me. What's in the book? It's my ledger. Every pony they ever killed. Every pony they ever ate. Velvet Remedy heard him. Why? She asked softly. Why would you keep a record of something like that? 'Cause I knew that this day was coming. Grandpa Rattle replied. And my mind ain't what it used to be, particularly in the daytime. Velvet Remedy closed her eyes. A tear reflected the light of her shield spell as it trickled down her cheek. I didn't figure it would be folks like you, though, Grandpa Rattle added. Actually, he said, pointing at Steel Hooves, I figured it would be folk like him. I found myself in Grandpa Rattle's loft, staring at his bed, at the scuff marks on the floor, at the iron shackles that had been used to bind the old man to his bed. I remembered running through the fire and Custer's cakes and galloping up the stairs. I lost my balance twice on the steps, feeling dizzy. I blamed the headache and the smoke. The loft was filled with smoke, forcing me to press against the hot floor. The heat was oppressive, but the fire wasn't spreading up the stairs. The ceiling of the bakery below wasn't catching the flames. I coughed, trying to open the lock on the safe, but it was impossible. My mind just couldn't grasp the image of the tumblers. Every time I tried, my thoughts got jumbled, fell apart. My headache was like a railroad spike being hammered into my skull. I floated out my screwdriver and a bobby pin. I would have to do this the old way. It was too hard. The lock was ridiculously difficult, or I was just too messed up to function. After breaking 4 bobby pins, I gave up. I just laid there on the hot floor, coughing and hacking, trying to still in my head. The coolness of the water talismans was washing over me, buffeting against the heat, keeping the room bearable. Why didn't you just go to your friends first? The pony in my head would not let me rest. I don't know, I told her. Why didn't you talk to Grandpa Rattle? You could have gotten this ledger. You could have known for sure. But I didn't. I'd seen enough. I'd killed for these monsters. The Steel Rangers. Those poor ponies at Buckland Cross. They didn't deserve to die. They didn't deserve to die. Not for Abu. Especially not for Abu. More memories came back. I could remember gunning down the milk-coloured, one-eyed pony now. We helped you! She screamed at me as she dropped her shotgun, having ran out of bullets. My mind flashed back to the Ponyville Bridge. Had I not said the same thing to Monterey Jack? You've never been forced to give up your principles for the greater good, to sacrifice yourself, and become a monster because it was the right thing to do. Red Eye was no longer my dark and twisted reflection. He was my reflection. I was a monster. I hadn't even been forced. I did it because I was mad. If anything, he was better than me. No, I wouldn't let it be like this. I wouldn't let myself become this. I had made a mistake. A horrible, evil mistake. But this wasn't me. I was better than this, and I still could be. I had to find a way to make this right. To fix this. You can't fix dead. No, but I could spend my entire life doing everything I could to make up for it. I would. I was corrupted kindness. But I could do more than that. Couldn't I? Was it possible for a messed up pony to have a true virtue as well? Yes, the voice in my head insisted. My memories flashed to our last visit to New Appaloosa, to Silverbell seeing Firelight, her eyes going wide with wonder, as if suddenly a whole world had opened up to her. A world of beauty. That voice out of nowhere. It was under E. Took a filly's tone. I never felt joy like that before. It just felt so good. I just wanted to keep smiling forever. And suddenly, part of me knew. Knew for sure. Call me crazy, but after we go, I half expect that filly to spend the next few days trying to make New Appaloosa as pretty as that bird. In that moment, Silverbell had found her virtue. A real one. pure and true. And if the pony who had epitomized corrupted laughter could also be something greater, then so could I. My headache had faded. I glanced towards the window. The sky was getting lighter. Dawn was almost here. I'd been in this room for hours. How? How had I lost so much time? I pulled out another bobby pin. This time, I got the lock open. It wasn't nearly as hard as it had been when I first tried it.
Howdy, children. This is your favorite voice of the airwaves, DJ Pony, bringing you the news. First up, a warning to travelers. The fires in the Everfree Forest are creating a major travel hazard from Splendid Valley to New Appaloosa. And I'm not talking about the air quality, although, considering some of the things burning up in that place, that might be a righteous concern. No, I've got reports of some truly fearsome monsters that have been driven from these forests. Caravans are cautioned to steer clear of the whole region until further notice. And now for something a little different. Mail Pony dropped old DJ Pony a letter today, written from our dear Ditsy Doo out in New Appaloosa. Love that gal. Well, she was listening to the reports I made regarding the stable dweller and the news of Abu. And she wasted no time in weighing in. Here's what she has to say about the stable dweller. I've seen her get raging mad at what the raiders in Ponyville did to me, and to a filly, and to so many others. She went crazy. She pulled out her gun and she started saving ponies. I was one of those ponies. Maybe you too. The bullet she fired is still saving ponies today, because those raiders aren't around anymore. I bet she saved a whole lot of ponies in Abu. P.S. Yummy, yummy muffins. Homage is awesome. Zenith is awesome. Little Pip is awesome. Thank you, and thank you again.
Took you long enough, Grandpa Rattle grumped as I returned with his ledger. Fall asleep in there? I set it down before him. I don't know. Well, I ain't got all day, he snapped, folding the ledger up. Dawn's almost here. Won't be loose so much longer. Velvet Remedy was curled up with the children, singing a soft lullaby. She'd gotten most of them to sleep. At the elderly buck's words, she stopped singing, turning to him. What do you mean? Grandpa Rattle looked to her without a trace of shame, as if he was too old and too weathered to be embarrassed about what he was saying anymore. Told you, my mind ain't what it used to be. I've been kissed by Luna since I was old enough to have a cutie mark, but that don't help come dawn. Kissed by Luna? I asked, my actions apparently having not killed my curiosity. Grandpa Rattle regarded me. That's right. Means I'm clearer-headed and more perceptive at night. A blessing from the goddess. Recent years means the nighttime staves after dementia. The old buck floated the ledger in front of Calamity. Well, gonna read it or not? The rust-coloured Pegasus looked at the book floating in front of him, then shook his head, pushing it away. The book broke out of Rattle's levitation bubble, thumping to the ground. I don't need to, Calamity said, walking past Grandpa Rattle and up to me, staring at me. You did wrong, little Pip. Says the pony, who shot her because he thought she was a raider. Velvet Remedy whispered. Don't matter what that book says, he continued. You lost control. I know, I said softly. Calamity lunged at me. I stiffened, too startled to react. He grabbed me, crushing me. I tried to fight back, but he was bigger, stronger. He was hugging me. I've seen your heart, little Pip, Calamity reminded me, clutching me tight. I know you're a good pony. Maybe the best I've ever met. I felt his tears. And if that heart cries out in pain and rage and fury, then I've got to believe it's for good reason. And I'm just too jaded to see it. The early morning breeze washed through the sky, Bandit. 6 children, 1 young buck, and Grandpa Rattle all accompanied us, scattered about on benches of the passenger wagon. This was the second time in 200 years that it had felt full, even though there were still plenty of empty benches. Velvet Remedy had been nothing less than amazing in getting the foals to come with us. We were taking them to Friendship City, some place they could be safe. Surely, a place called Friendship would take them in. And, if they needed persuading, I had a water talisman to offer. Now, Velvet Remedy's attention was on me. Her horn was glowing as she looked into my eyes.
If it would make you feel any better to claim temporary brain damage, I could probably give you a doctor's note.
Velvet chided.
Your concussion was less than 16 hours ago, and what you've done is pretty much the opposite of rest.
It's at least 3 days' flight to Canterlot. I reasoned. I'll rest on the way. My headache was back, although not as bad as before. I hadn't been able to eat, but I really didn't want to. I wasn't sure I could eat ever again. I would never put meat in my mouth for as long as I lived. Velvet Remedy nuzzled me softly.
But you shouldn't. Need to excuse yourself, I mean. You didn't do anything wrong.
She took my face in her paws and made me look into her eyes.
I know you, little Pip. I can see you've been bucking yourself to pieces about this ever since it happened. Possibly even while it was happening. You're not a monster. You're not a villain. You're a mare who loves ponies and cares about them. And who had finally seen too many hurt, too badly to stand it anymore. Goddesses, if only we had more like you.
Velvet? Something in her voice worried me. She looked down, dipping her horn.
If any pony is a monster here, little Pip, it's me.
What? No, that's...
You killed a bunch of ponies who were murdering and eating other ponies.
She said softly, a tone of real sorrow in her voice.
Yesterday, I put the life of my pet above the life of a pony.
I shook my head quickly, and now it was my turn to make her look into my eyes. You put the life of a beloved member of our group, a thinking and feeling creature, above the life of a pony who shot her. Velvet Remedy gave me a wet, grateful look, but said nothing. What are these marks? Steelhorse asked Grandpa Rattle. Calamity may have neglected the ledger, but the leader of the Applejack's Ranger was giving it a close inspection.
See what now?
Grandpa Rattle asked.
Hey, how'd you get my ledger?
You gave it to me, Steelhorse said evenly, patiently.
Oh!
He looked around.
We're leaving Abu, ain't we?
This was not the first time Rattle had seemed surprised at the change in his surroundings. Yes, Steelhorse said. Now, if you please, what are these marks? Grandpa Rattle peered at the ledger.
There's how many times I warned our folks before the others killed them. 1 mark for each time I told them I have a shotgun.
I see. For him to keep such records of his attempt to help. Zenith leaned close, whispering to my ear. I suspect he was not attempting to rescue at all. He was preparing for his defense. Grandpa Rattle turned his appraising gaze to Steelhooves.
You're him, ain't you?
Steelhooves looked at him from the ledger. Excuse me?
You're Paladin Steelhooves,
he exclaimed.
I remember you. You're that ghoul my daughter kept lusting after.
Velvet Remedy's ears perked. I stifled a laugh. Steelhooves nickered and turned his attention back to the ledger. You must be mistaken.
No, I ain't. You're just none too perceptive.
Grandpa Rattle insisted.
Never knew she was even there. Always pinning for Applejack.
Steelhooves looked up abruptly. Do I know you?
Scribe Rattle.
Grandpa Rattle paused.
Former. Left after my daughter got pregnant.
Steelhorse's quick stomp. Rattle swiftly added,
Not yours. With that buck, what's his name from Abu?
Steelhorse cocked his head slowly. Scribe Rattle. Transformations magic. Abandon the Rangers after your daughter was disgraced. I remember now. Grandpa Rattle's expression darkened, but he nodded. You know transformation magic? Zenith asked.
Yep. Steel Rangers was trying to figure out a spell to turn Steel Rangers armor into clothing and back. Wouldn't work, I told him. Armor's already full of spells.
He looked suddenly eager.
I could change your rifle into a stick if you'd like.
I've got a shotgun. I do not have a rifle, Zenith pointed out.
Oh,
Turning to me.
how about you?
Can you change it back? I asked.
No.
He had a stick. Looking past him, my eyes caught those of the young buck I had pulled out of Java's cup. The young buck had been staring at me silently since laying down on one of the Sky Bandit's benches at the start of the trip. You have no Abu mark? I recall asking him, my heart almost giddy with relief.
No.
He had told me, backed into the corner of his room.
Last week, I was supposed to kill a mare and eat her heart, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. I know I was supposed to, and Daddy was furious.
Then his expression changed, a flash of insight.
You killed my daddy, didn't you?
There had been such an odd look in his eyes. It wasn't blame. It was resignation. Now, for the first time, he spoke.
What happened to Clear Glass?
It took me a moment to realise he was talking about the only other pony in Abu of similar age. The young mare guard. The mare I hadn't intended to kill, but who I was sure now I had choked to death without even thinking. I cringed, looking for words. I killed her. The voice wasn't mine. I turned, looking at Steelhorse in surprise. Coming up on Friendship City, Calamity called out before anything more could be said.
This time, let me do the talking.
Velvet Remedy said to Steelhooves.
Your diplomacy leaves a lot to be desired.
The ghoul nodded wordlessly. The events of the night before was weighing heavily on him, and, for him, Abu was not the heaviest burden. I got up, steadying myself as I was hit with an odd dizziness. It passed, and I moved to the window, staring out at the Pony of Friendship. A huge statue, made of green metal, that stared out over the Manhattan harbour. Living inside that metal structure, surrounded by water, was an entire town of ponies. I could see lights pouring out of tiny holes where the metal had rusted through. Friendship City. I was thrown against one of the passenger wagon's benches as Calamity banked a hard left, dodging the shot. I can't believe Friendship City is shooting at us! I cried out. Smaller pops were followed by a massive crack of thunder below us. A massive explosion of black smoke and flame burst in the air a dozen yards away. The rifles of ponies firing from the crown windows of the Pony of Friendship were not much of a threat, but the shells from the harbour artillery were a whole different matter. You haven't been listening to the radio, have you? Steelhorse rumbled. Your friend DJ Pony has had some unpleasant thing to say about the massacre of Abu. What? Another shell burst in the air. Calamity veered harshly, throwing me again. Velvet put her shield up and around the children to keep them from being tossed. We can't land here, Calamity shouted. I've got to head back. Sounds like one of those two rangers you let go at Buckland Cross reported Abu in the worst possible light. Steelhorse informed me bitterly. I was dying inside. Homage? Oh, goddess. What did Homage think of me? Did she hate me? I have them recorded if you would like to listen later. I wanted to gallop to her, to order Calamity to head to Ten Pony Tower straight away. But I couldn't. I'd already delayed far too long. We needed to go to Canterlot, to deal with the goddess, and to turn our attention to Red Eye. Right now, thousands of ponies were in danger just from Red Eye's threat alone, and I was surely already testing his patience. I remember thinking, in that one brief moment of memory I'd kept for myself in the Helping Hoof Clinic in 10 Pony Tower. It was the only way to make sure Red Eye listened. I communicated with Red Eye somehow, presumably through some pony or griffin in his encampment. I had hoped that I had been convincing him that I had a plan that I just needed time. A lot of time. More importantly, Hamaj needed the truth. Truth she could trust in. And I was the last pony to be able to give her that. She needed to learn what had happened from a source that was not as biased as I was. If she learned the truth, it couldn't be from me. Anything from me would be tainted. And if she did not, or worse, if she did, and hated me for it, it would kill me. But, like a ghoul, I would keep going anyway. If I lost Hamaj, I was losing something I didn't deserve. And if the whole wasteland turned against me, if every pony feared and hated me, it wouldn't stop me from trying to make Equestria a better place. Even if it meant I would be forever seen as a villain of the peace. Calamity flew us away from Friendship City. We waited an hour after landing in the Manhattan ruins, then worked our way towards the harbour on hoof. The rest of us stayed behind, watching from an observation platform, as Velvet Remedy led the survivors out onto Friendship Bridge. Her horn was glowing. Behind her floated Elder Cottage Cheese's life support capsule. Pie-Light perched on top, enjoying the ride. Friendship Bridge was a drawbridge that had once extended all the way from Manhattan to the island. I was astounded how close to intact it still was. There were gaps, but none looked larger than a few hundred yards, and there were rope bridges spanning the collapsed sections. How did they even do that? I mused, staring at the extensive rope bridges through my binoculars. It seemed like an incredible feat, even for unicorn magic. Calamity tapped my shoulder, then grinned and fluttered his wings. Oh, duh. At some point, Friendship City had become home to at least one Dashite. Through my binoculars, I could see that the ponies of Friendship City had fouled the Manhattan half of the lifting bridge, locking it flat, and had re-engineered their half so that they could control it. As I watched Velvet Remedy, Grandpa Rattle, and the children approach the far end of the Manhattan side. It had to be Velvet Remedy, and it had to be her alone. DJ's warning painted Zenith and Calamity as signs of danger, and only Velvet Remedy had the diplomatic skills to talk to the ponies of Friendship City into letting the survivors in. Well, not exactly alone. She had Pie-Light. I was suddenly reminded of how much solace Pie-Light had given me in Philadelphia. In the crumbling ruins of the building behind us, Zenith was talking with Steelhooves as she built a cook fire. "You are sweet to condemn those who eat the meat of other ponies," she said softly. "I am a ghoul," he replied. "And I am a zebra," she replied. "And, like the medical pony, I am vegetarian. Yet, you took greater offense to the survival tactics of Abu than I did. Why is that?" "Zombies eat the flesh of ponies, because they are monsters." The zebra nodded sagely. "I see." We watched and waited. They were far away, but I thought I could see Velvet Remedy lifting her hoof. There was, I'd been told, an intercom that would allow her to speak to the guards on the island, if they were willing to listen. Steelhooves moved up next to me and sat down. "Calamity, mind if I talk to little Pip alone?" Calamity looked at him for a moment, then nodded and flew off to where Zenith was cooking. I looked at Steelhooves nervously. "Clear glass?" I asked slowly. "You sent a merchant pony, an innocent, into a basement. A place where he could be easily cornered, even though you had left one of the guards alive," he responded. "Us as well. It was a sort of tactical error you wouldn't have made if you were thinking clearly." He looked at me. "That is how I knew you were not." I closed my eyes and looked away. "Take the pain slowly," he said solemnly. What you became last night is going to hurt you for the rest of your life. I nodded. Part of me wanted to cry, but I wouldn't let myself because the tears would have only been for me, and I didn't deserve them. The ponies of Abu didn't deserve them either. As much as my actions horrified me, showing me the monster I could and briefly did become, there was no question that Abu needed to be purged. Just like any pit of raiders or band of slavers. If any pony deserved my tears, it was them who I had saved. The night had cut a deep wound in me, an abscess carved in my soul by a blade of my own wielding. The great hollowness festered with despair and self-loathing, but I was slowly filling with determination. Steelhorse stared out over the harbour. I need to thank you, little Pip. For what? For failing, Steelhorse said, surprising me. All this time, you've been some pony to look up to. You've made me want to be a better pony. But, at the same time, you were too good. He looked at me. You were an impossible standard. Tonight, you've made it easier for me to live with myself. I just stared. My heart twisted, unsure how to feel. A drop of rain hit my horn. Another splashed against my nose. Steelhorse turned away, staring out across the harbour again as the rain began to fall. Eventually, I did too. Raising my binoculars, I caught Pyrelight flying towards the island, carrying something. The ledger I knew.
Good evening. This is DJ Pony, and have I got news for you. Major update on the situation at Abu and Buckland Cross. My associate spent the last few hours talking with a merchant who was at Abu and saw much of what went down. First and foremost, let me say, hallelujah. Sounds like our wasteland savior hasn't fallen to the darkness after all. Maybe stumbled a little, but listen to this. The ponies of Abu were cannibals, folks. That's right. They ate pony. And if that wasn't sick enough, they've been selling pony meat, claiming it was radigator meat. Eating a radigator kebab lately? You sure about that? Great goddesses, and I thought I'd seen all the fucked up shit this wasteland had to serve up. Well, turns out our stable dweller discovered the truth. Unfortunately, here's where things get sketchy. See, when our heroine showed the merchant what she had discovered, the pony hightailed it out of there and didn't look back. But what the merchant could tell us is that before shit went down, the ponies of Abu were treating our heroine to a meal and a place to sleep. And, yes, children, you guessed what was on the menu. But before she knew the truth, our heroine tried to help the ponies of Abu. She went to Buckland Cross to negotiate for clean, purified water for the town. And the rangers on that broken bridge started firing at our heroine before she even got into shouting range. According to the merchant, it was quite the light show. I don't know about you children, but that gives me new suspicions about what happened at Buckland Cross. And it puts a serious question to the witness from Buckland Cross who first reported the events at Abu. I'll let you know more as soon as I do, children. But for now, I think we can all breathe one hell of a sigh of relief. And now, it's Sweetie Belle, singing about that one great truth of the wasteland.
It rained for the next 2 days straight. Water was still falling from the sky in sheets as we flew over the foothills that slowly climbed up towards the base of the mountains. Dark cliffs shot up abruptly to loom over the landscape. Somewhere up there, obfuscated by the rain, were the ruins of Canterlot, the former capital city of Equestria. We were soaked to the bone, but Calamity had suffered the most by far. I shivered from the cold. My armoured stable utility barding was pasted to me like a second skin, the fur of my coat trapped between it and my real skin in a most unpleasant way. But still, I was better off than I had been in days. The morning was the first time I had been without headaches. For the first time in days, I felt like I was actually thinking clearly. Velvet only proclaimed my concussion gone, but still wanted me to rest. I've been doing nothing but resting since she had returned from Friendship Bridge. Alone, save for Pyrelight. Friendship City had proven good to its name and taken in the refugees from Abu, and cottage cheese as well. They hadn't asked for any payment, any compensation. They just wanted to help, the way ponies were supposed to. I sent Pie-Light to them with one of the water talismans, not as payment, but as a gift. The other water talisman was now safely installed in Stable 29. Star Paladin Crossroads had been talking about rebooting the Crusader when we left. With the override codes, Cross was convinced they could rewrite the Crusader's programming, turning it into an obedient and beneficial custodian. She still hadn't decided what to do about Buckland Cross. Steelhorse gave her some advice, but left the decision up to her. I believe his diplomatic failure had left him wanting to distract himself from that place. I stared at my forehooves. As we approached Canterlot, a new concern had pushed its way into my mind. My pipbuck. We were supposed to take everything off as we entered. Our armor, our saddlebags. I was supposed to float it. But you couldn't float a pipbuck. Well, you could, but all you would have is a fancy radio. It had to be attached for the EFS and SATs to work, not to mention the medical assistance and auto mapping. I could take it off. I had the tools. But without it, I would be a fraction of my usefulness in the most dangerous place we'd ever set hoof in. Could I do that? Was it right to expose my friends to even more danger, as I might otherwise be forever bonded with, well, with my cutie mark? Keep your eyes peeled for a safe place to put her down for the night. Calamity called back over the roar of the rain. To be honest, none of us were concerned about safe as we were about dry. We all moved to the windows. I lifted my binoculars, but they did little good. They just made the grey of the rain closer. Suddenly, Steelhorse galloped to the front of the Sky Bandit. A moment later, he turned to me. Little Pip, can you get me on the roof?
Can you stay on the roof?
Velva asked, concerned.
Even with the mounting?
What's wrong? I asked, even as I kicked on my EFS and answered my own question. With my targeting spell, I could recognise several hostile targets, at least a dozen, all airborne, and 3 friendly ones on the ground. In the second it took me to count, one of the red marks passed over the one of the friendly lights and extinguished it. Now, there were only 2. Calamity! I shouted as I drew out my sniper rifle. Get us as close as we can! We need to see what we're shooting at! Floating out the sniper rifle, I slid into SAT and took aim at a shadowy, flying figure I could not clearly see. The targeting spell, however, didn't give a damn about the rain, and my EFS was quick to identify the targets. Bloodwings. A whole damn flock of them, attacking 2 fleeing figures on the ground, who, as best as I could tell, were completely unarmed. I opened fire, determined not to allow that number to drop any further.
Hello out there. Any pony awake? It's time for a special late night edition of the news. I have with me, communicating over a broadcaster, one Grandpa Rattle, longtime resident of Abu and new citizen of Friendship City. And is here to set the record straight. The whole pony bout what went down 3 nights ago. So, sit down and hold on to your hats, children, because this is going to be one hell of a story. But first, I have something I have to say, and this goes out from me to the heroine of the wasteland, our little bringer of light. I'm sorry. When you've seen as much as I have, when you've seen as many heroes fail and fall, it's hard not to expect it. It's hard to keep believing, even when you know there's some pony out there you should believe in. You didn't fail a stable dweller. I failed you. And you had my deepest and sincerest. A particular toaster repair pony once told me that she would always be tuning in listening to my message of hope. Well, listen close, stable dweller, 'cause this is the honest truth. Straight from me to you. That message of hope, that's you. You are my message. Now then, Grandpa Rattle, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and this book you want to share with us tonight? Ain't a book, it's a ledger. A recording of every sick thing the ponies in Abu did. By the time I'm done reading 2 pages, I guarantee every one of y'all wish you could be in there to do what that little man did for y'all.
Footnote. Maximum level.